everyone who are now watching this video project. We are from group 5 that we are going to compare and contrast the multi-level government between the United States and also China. So before jumping to the detail, I would like to give you some insight related to multi-level government. So basically multi-level government is known as the term that is used to describe the way that the power is spread vertically between many levels of government and horizontally across multiple government, non-governmental organizations, and also actors. So regarding to this, there is also a question that why both the United States and China prefer its current form of government. So regarding to this, for the United States, the Constitution of the United States divides the federal government into three main branches in order to make sure that no individual or group inside the country have too much power. And actually, those three main branches are known as the first one is legislative, that it has function to create or to compose the law for the state. And for the next is executive, that it has function to like carry out the law. And for the last branches is a judicial system, that it has function to evaluate the law that are made for the state. However, for the form of government of China, the government of the Republic of China Authority is under the exclusive political leadership of Communist Chinese Communist Party. Moreover, it consists of like legislative, executive, military, supervisory, judicial systems, and also procuratorial branches. And regarding to the question that I have mentioned earlier, why both states prefer its current form of government, actually there are some reasons why both prefer its current form of state. So for China, because it believes that its form of government has a fairly sound and its provision of national public welfare products for people ensure the good national order. And moreover, China also believes that its form of state can lead to the regime changes, economic stability, social stability that would also cease to exist. And for the United States, it prefers its current form of government because it believes that it can increase the participation of its citizens inside the country. And the United States also try not to centralize the power into the hand of the national government, but trying to share power with the state of government, which are closer to every level of the citizens. And so that it can try to increase a citizen's ability to affect the government and also to affect the government policy. So this is the US and China choose their way of governing. So then we will move to the relationship between central government and central government by both states.
Now let's take a look at the relationship between central government and subcentral government. The United States, as previously stated, has a federal political systems that divide authority between self-governing states and national government that unifies the state, which is why the nation is called the United States of America. The national or federal government is authorized by the Constitution to handle both national commerce and foreign policy. Given the fact that the grant of those federal powers reflect a substantial centralization, the state retains significant powers, including responsibility for many direct social services like health, education, welfare, and as well as authority over internal commerce. Over time, the national government has been able to expand its influence in numerous sectors that were formerly subject to the state sovereignty. The federal government now has the authority to evaluate the validity of state laws, impose federal regulation, and as well as providing federal funds to state for services just like education and transportation, as long as it is subjected to the state compliance with federal standards. This federal state of national and state authority has allowed state to implement with a wide range of policies in areas such as welfare reform, vehicle emission standards, marijuana legalization, and educational changes. However, it has also resulted in a lack of standardization in certain areas as well as varying levels of benefits and enforcement across the state. For China, however, under the system of authoritarian rules, China's leaders practice rule by law, and the legal reform in China has remained obedient to the party's hierarchy, which routinely protect officials from the law. Party's leaders have often applied corruption or abuse of office status selectively and have fabricated or even exaggerated crime to scare political opponent or hold up one deviant as an example to the others. As what we have always heard, one of the Chinese saying goes, kill the chicken to scare the monkey. For over 2,000 years, China has been unified and ruled centrally. This approach has caused successive authoritarian governments, including the present one, to resist notion of federalism, believing that unity and stability can only be achieved through strong central leadership. China has maintained this system through a central structure of parallel parties and government rule, which has been reproduced at all levels of government. The system consists of 34 provincial level administrative units, 23 of which are province, 4 of which are provincial level cities, 5 of those are autonomous region, and there are also 2 special administrative regions, which are Hong Kong and Macau. Furthermore, there are about 3,000 counties, over 40,000 townships, and over 700,000 villages. Each level is modeled on central government with parallel parties and government councils, and as well as administrative department and Congress at the provincial, county, and township levels. The central party's leadership has delegated significant economies policy-making responsibility to regional and local offices in recent years. These measures has enhanced efficiencies and fostered growth. However, local authorities are neither given the ability to tax or the alternative source of money offered, which in turn has increased opportunities for those local corruption and abuse of powers.
Going on to this part is about what should be centralized and what should be decentralized to lower level of the governments. In a centralized country, power and authority are concentrated in the hands of the central government, while regions and local authority have little to no powers. While in the decentralized system, power, functions, and authority are distributed among the local authorities and entities and are not concentrated in the hands of the central government. The power can be divided among the region, province, or even in the city. Both the United States and China use the decentralized approach, but the outcome is very different. The single states in the United States have a large degree of autonomy, while Chinese region remain under state control because the central government still maintain a certain degree of the controls, and the local authority of China are under the close supervision of the central government, and their power are still limited. So, what should be centralized and what should be decentralized to lower level of the government in the United States and China? So for China, there's nothing that China should centralize more since it's a communist state and most of the power is still in the hand of the central government. So there are two main things that they should make it even better in the decentralization. First of all, China should decentralize in the case of participation. Although China is a decentralized one-party system, its communist party still maintains strict control over the population and all the public decision, which means that they exclude the public participation because it's easier for the government to take and implement the decision without having to go through the public. Therefore, they should decentralize this even in the better approach because it's important to enhance and promote the public participation so that the decision making is closer to the state population. Second, China should decentralize in the case of increasing the degree of autonomies and also the local regions and area in order to promote the equal growth. as we can see nowadays, the power in the hand of a central Chinese government, therefore equally distributed among the regions, towns, and local authority, can enhance the public participation and also the equality. As the decision makers are closer to the population, and they can also propose and enact and also customize the laws and bill to address the specific needs of the local communities and also the minorities group, and it can also serve very diverse interests for the people in China. However, for the United States, it's completely contrast to China, in which it doesn't need two main decentralization. Instead, it's need two main centralization within the country. First of all, the United States should centralize in the national emergency. The White House have last most decision up to the state or the local level, and those states have different measures in the containment of the emergency. For instance, in the case of COVID-19, some states like New Jersey have taken more aggressive measures to prevent the spread of the disease, like the close of all the restaurants, the curfew and stuff, while the other states, however, have taken little decision action to maintain the virus. Therefore, the United States really needs the central government to take the responsibility and use its power in the case of the national emergency. Since the United States hand-off approach of the federal government does more harm than the good if the central government do not have the power in the national emergency. Second, the United States should centralize in the House of the Representative, um, which means that the centralized process can work where the decentralization fail. For instance, the centralization process are typically more efficient in that they can have the Congress avoid the restricting open process and also the moving up on the legislation forward without unnecessary delay. In this point, the centralized process are also flexible in that party leader can work around the problematic lawmaker, such as the committee chair who can be the hostile to the legislation, or they can even be the legislative proposal that cut across the committee, or something that is less possible when the committee attempt to legislate on their own.
Now, moving on to part 4, we are going to talk about how we ensure that a multi-level government can promote the resulting system as effectively and as democratic as possible. The US and China are two totally different types of multi-level government. There are some reasons that the multi-level government can do it as efficiently and as democratic as possible. For example, if we look at the United States, which is well known as democratic government, their government structure is based on coordination from different sectors and departments to bring the best outcome for its citizens. And practicing these types of democratic policies, the multi-level government strengthens its structure by keep improving the policies they practice. Furthermore, by doing so, it ensures the conditions of all different levels of government in good shape. All levels of government have consistency of practicing the same policies and keep the structure and system not only transparent but efficient as well. On the other hand, if we look at China, it is totally different. China, with its Chinese central government, is far from what we just talked about in the US. The world we live in is now more globalized than ever, so it is hard for China to interact with other countries with its central government structure. China, with its big plan, One Belt, One Road initiative, gets to associate with democratic and multi-level governments. The problem is the gap between policy transmission from the lower level of Chinese government is making them not connected well enough with other bureaucracies of its economic partner countries. Moreover, in order to obtain expected results such as influence over those countries, China will have a hard time upgrading its public administration communications infrastructure and protocols to cope with multi-level government policies transmission problems they have now. Thus, these two countries have different features for their government. We can tell that democratic ways of all government levels participating in decision making is more effective and efficient to operate a government in the world that we are living in.
Now, we're going to go through the future directions of democratic decentralizations of the US as well as China. First, let's start with the US. The United States of America, as we all know, is a democratic country, more specifically, a representative democracy. And they have practiced the act of decentralizations for a very long time. And of course, there are still a few mistakes to need to be reformed. We're going to look through the Congress, more specifically the Senate. There's a phrase in the Senate called the filibuster. I will elaborate. If a bill was being debated and voted by the committee, they still need a Senate voting and debating as well. So if it passed to the Senate floor, the Senate will start debating. But in order to end that debate, you need a supermajority in order to end it. So that supermajority is a 60/40 in order to end, and then in terms of voting of practicing, it's only a simple majority, which is 51/100. And where it clustered and where it stopped in terms of working inside the Senate, it's that they take the debate ending voting to pile up amounts of bills that need to be passed just simply, plus even an application. That's where it got clustered, and the word filibustered has been used, meaning to block the process of bill to be successful or to be voted in practice. Just keep on debating over and over and over again. That is a problem within the Senate. And discussion it is for them to adopt a standing order to the fall floor agreement with decentralized amendment section. Current negotiations start from a blank piece of paper, and party leaders negotiate on the details. So a highly decentralized chamber become centralized progress. Instead, the Senate could begin debating and voting immediately on the bill using a default floor agreement that lay out in the fair progress. While inside China, they decentralized their economy. As we all know right now, they're doing a fantastic job at it. They moved forward in a dynamic way in economic reform without any privatizations and without privating the sector. The state constructor was to decentralize control and creating competitions amongst localities. But what we fail to see in terms of decentralization is within their politics. The politics of People's Republic of China take place in a framework of socialist republic run by one particular party, is that the Chinese Communist Party. States power have so much power over the people that there were not a lot of communications. There were no laws that benefit the people in the outside world. So we can see that they have a central power within the state. So in terms of recommendations or suggestions, we can say that is to have this is by a long form. A long shot is for political reform on side of the decentralizations, and more specifically democratic decentralizations. And to sum up everything else, it's that US versus China have a very different set of opinions in terms of how they control multi-level governments. The US have its own structure, China have its own structure. US are currently practicing decentralizations. China also practicing decentralizations, but in a more particular way rather than United States. United States needs to improve on their centrality, and China need to improve on their decentralizations. We can see in many practices was raised earlier, and that's it from our group. Hope that you have a fantastic day. Goodbye.